got some of the very best news ever, but we can't tell you yet. Right, honey? I mean, it's the most exciting news I think anybody could ever get in their whole lives as a surprise. And we got it today. We can't tell you, but we're gonna have to do a whole podcast about it.
Maybe or maybe not.
Yeah, maybe
we'll
not.
just keep it to ourselves.
Yeah, but we're gonna try real hard to do that.
I got an idea. Let's talk about the stages of love.
Okay, let's talk about the types first because we watched that Super Bowl commercial and you were really mad.
I was mad because they're like, the Greeks have 4 words for love, and it's not true. They have 7. Actually, 7 is there's more than that, really. How many is there total?
I think there are a total of 8 that I could find.
Okay.
But they don't use, I mean, the funny thing is they're all ancient Greek words. They don't really use them too much anymore. But it is pretty cool that the Greeks, I think we used to joke about how, the Greeks have as many words for love as the Eskimos have for snow. Because love isn't just love and snow isn't just snow. There's so many different kinds. Yeah. So I thought we would cover the different kinds first.
Let's circle back to that commercial real quick because they nailed 2 of them and then totally glossed over one of the biggest misconception stages of love out there, and then absolutely bastardized the last one. Didn't even come close to. Well, they didn't come close to getting it right. So, and there's a bunch of they got some religious blowback on there. There's some tweets out there from people straightening them out on that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know you were so interested that you went and like.
Well, when I have a strong opinion about something, I like to look it up and see if there's people backing me up. I know somebody else that's like that.
Well, I like science. Is that what you mean? I don't care if some guy's opinion on the Twitter jives with mine or not.
Well, when you read multiple people's definition of a word on Twitter, regardless of who they are, and it's about the same, and then you watch a commercial that gets it completely wrong.
Yeah, they did kind of. I did think I think it was a sweet commercial though. It was really beautiful, even though we didn't like their definitions of the.
It was the New York Life one. Is the one where when you saw it, you probably checked to make sure you're still on the right channel.
Because it didn't fit in with all the other funny commercials.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, so let's cover them. The first one is.
By the way, Chiefs fans. Sorry, had to get a little prop in. Super Bowl's over.
Yeah. Way to go, Chiefs.
Shoulder season. Nothing exciting is going to happen until baseball starts.
Thank God we can take a break.
Okay, where were we?
The first kind of love that we're going to talk about. That's the drum roll. That was my drum roll.
Yeah, don't do that again.
Okay.
It's Eros.
You don't like that?
Eros. And everybody's heard of Eros.
I say Eros.
Eros. That makes it sound like error.
Well, I don't know.
Many times, Eros is an error.
Do you say erotic? Erotic.
Depends on if it's a noise.
Erotic.
If it's a noise, it's erotic.
Oh my God. That was so punny.
I know. That was a dad joke.
Dad joke. Okay, so however we say it, erotic. Eros, which is madly in love. That's the first phase of love. It's like when you first see someone and you get the butterflies, and then that can actually last for quite a while. It's
sort of, depending on your definition of what quite a while is. What's your definition?
Well, Eros can last for a couple years.
Right, but we've talked about this many, many times. It's the only kind of love that
disappears.
Well,
it's mostly
99.5% of everything that's ever come out of Hollywood is, and they lived happily ever after.
Right. The whole movie is about Eros, and then they gloss over the rest of it, the happily ever after. So Eros is the love that we're in love with.
That we're in love with?
Yeah, it's the love that everybody wants to feel. It's the love that we are in love with.
It's the love that we're kind of conditioned to believe
is the only kind of love between lovers and romantic partners.
Yeah, how do you know that you're really in love? You just know.
You know. You get the butterflies.
You feel it.
You get nervous around them.
But then
You
they go
can't
away.
sleep.
Then what? What happens when they go away?
Well, when they go away, then you start the Great Migration.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that because there's a bunch of other kinds of love we're going to touch on. And they did talk about Eros in that commercial, and they did say the words "mad love," but the gloss over part happened where, and it's a 30-second freaking Super Bowl spot, so I'm going to give them a little grace on that too. But we're gonna go through. Do you want to just go through these each one?
Yeah, let's go through each one, and then we'll talk about the stages. Okay. So all of these kind of relate to the stages of love too, but we'll kind of cover that next. All right, so the next kind of love is
philia.
Philadelphia.
Oh, it's not philia.
No, that's creepy. This is friendship love.
It's not F-E-E-L-Y-A.
No, it's F. It's P. Now you got me all clumped. It's it's Philia, like Philadelphia, because Philadelphia is the city of brotherly love. So that this one's easy.
Yeah.
Friendship love.
Friendship love.
Brotherly love.
Yep.
Then we have Storge. Or Storge.
Storge. And Storge is like the love that you have for family, like taking care of a grandparent, or a grandparent taking care of a grandchild, or a parent, or that kind of love, right?
Yeah, for me, the way I think about Storge is the love between a parent and a child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it can go
it's kind
uphill
of a caretaking kind of love.
But it can go uphill too when the parents get older. Yeah. So
yeah, like when Ginny
it
lived
is.
with
It's
us
totally
one
like
family.
that. It's actually, that's where that commercial really got it wrong, because a lot of the descriptions that they used of one of the loves we're going to talk about later, which is agape, were Storge definitions. But
yeah. Then we have ludicrous.
Ludus.
Yeah, ludus.
Ludicrous sounds like.
I'm just, you know what I'm trying to do is use those words so that people can remember these words.
They're in our book.
I don't know. I know they're in our book, but sometimes I even forget. So making up little things for myself is good.
Yeah. So ludus is playful love. It's
joking around.
Yeah.
It's that, like that one time when we wrestled, except for that ended up real weird. And I was
That's
like,
you don't know how to wrestle.
You do this with men? Because
Anyway.
your ball sack was hanging
right
right
that's
in my
too
face.
Much information. That's gross. We have kids that listen to our podcast.
They don't listen to our podcast.
All right. So
every single podcast that we have has the explicit rating, dear.
Ludus is it's I don't know. To me, it's an integral part of love, because being playful with those that you love is everything for me. I like to be playful with everybody, and I love everybody, or most people. So I love ludus. I use the word love. I didn't mean to use the word love, but ludus is one of my favorites.
I dig your ludus, honey.
Yeah.
It's part of why I'm with you.
And it ends with the same.
Because you're a funny motherfucker.
And then
agape. We don't have these in any particular order, just for the record.
Yeah. Agape is actually at the top of the heap. It's the one we all strive for. It's like what we call the total enlightenment of love. It is the total embodiment of love. It is absolute selfless love. And the people tweeting about the commercial that we talked about that said they got it completely wrong, we're like,
they said agape is an action
in the commercial.
In the commercial, which is all love is an action. There's no love where, I think they all involve doing something.
I don't know. Eros is kind of,
Eros you're right.
You up a little bit.
Eros is kind of it is still an action. You're not making it happen, but your body's creating all these crazy chemicals. We'll talk about that in a minute when we get to the stages of love.
Agape is unconditional love, and that people would, obviously, if you're Christian, you're like, well, there's no question, Jesus totally embodied agape, and I wouldn't disagree with that. And if you're a Buddhist, you would say Buddha totally embodied agape, and I wouldn't disagree with that. And if you're a Muslim, you would say, Muhammad embodied agape, and I wouldn't disagree with that. And
this is a love actually that they describe as the love that you have for your creator. whatever you believe that is, the universe, God, Holy Mother, whatever.
It's the embodiment of love. It's unconditional. It's just you are love. That's agape. And that's why it's so damn difficult. That's why we call it the top of the pyramid, the top of the heap, and
almost because we're imperfect human beings. This to me is like you said, like enlightenment, like we're all on the journey trying to get there, and we may never get there. We may never actually know what unconditional love feels like.
I don't think there's anything such thing as total enlightenment or the embodiment of something like agape. There's very, very few personages that have been that,
Yeah.
Mother Teresa, you could probably toss her into the mix. I mean, I don't know. I never met her personally, but she seemed like a pretty cool chick.
Yeah, I think I'm hoping that there are more of those people out there than we know.
That's probably bad. I shouldn't have called Mother Teresa a chick.
I think it's okay.
All right.
Maybe she would have liked that.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe I'm the first.
And the last one is the one that we believe, once you've been with someone for a long time in a romantic relationship, in a partnership, or a marriage, is called pragma. And that's when you truly learn to love someone, where you truly accept them for who they are. I think when you're in eros, you can't quite, you're blinded by all these chemicals that are happening to you, and it's all very exciting. And then when that wears off, you're like, oh, look, he has flaws. Weird. What am I going to do with that? Ooh, God.
Is it? I should have looked this up before we started this podcast. But pragma is obviously part of like pragmatic. Right? Is pragmatic? Is it not to just to know?
Um,
I'm gonna look it up while we're talking. Can you talk?
I thought it was more like when you say it's. Yeah, go ahead. I thought pragmatic was more like reasonable. Like
doesn't sound right when you're talking about love.
I think it does. It's interesting. I was having this conversation actually with my sister, and she said, "God, I was learning. I was talking about or looking at arranged marriages and the percentage of people that stay together with arranged marriages,
and
a lot. It's a super high percentage." And we were laughing about that because in the Western culture we're all about eros and falling in love and choosing our own mates, but it's perhaps not that pragmatic. And isn't it interesting that in arranged marriages that they stay together when their parents choose their partners?
It says dealing with things sensibly and realistically in a way that is based on practical rather than theoretical considerations. And now, if you don't mind, I'm just going to expand on that for a minute because it makes more sense when you talk about something being realistic and practical. And the realistic and practical thing about love is when you're going from eros to pragma is they call it the great migration, but there's
when we say they, we mean we.
Yeah, we call it that, but there's generally that's when the turmoil happens. You're like, oh my gosh, I don't feel the same way I used to be. Where are the butterflies? You know what I mean? And
I thought I was supposed to always feel like that. I was like, if I pick the right person, I'm going to be in eros for the rest of my life, because I thought it was beautiful and wonderful and exciting, but it's also exhausting.
Well, yeah, and when you get to pragma, which is the realistic thing, is like, for me, reality is I'm still in love with this person, but if I'm going to be practical, anything that's worth having takes effort. You know what I mean? So I can't just cruise along anymore on my charm and good looks. I might have to actually pick up my socks if I want to make this woman happy.
Yeah, I like it when you pick up your socks.
So it's kind of a, when you use a word like eros, it's a sexy word and it's mad love, and then you go to like pragma and it's definitely the root of the word pragmatic, and which is realistic and practical, and then that just sounds boring and dull, and it's like, why would I want that? But I got to tell you, I think pragma is just the beginning of this stage of love, because being realistic and practical about where you are in your relationship gets you to the point where you can start looking at it and saying, how can I make it better now? Okay, so it's not the way that it was, but how can I take what I have now and make that even better? And that's one of the things that we did. And I
we
wouldn't.
still do that.
We do still do that. We were talking about it today when we're going on a trip. There's a couple of classes or something that we could go to or do. Do you want to do that? I don't know. We didn't decide, but
because it was relationship related.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant. But so pragma, if you look at it, it's not that dull, drab word. It's just getting to that understanding and then getting from there and applying that realism and that practicality to your relationship and then growing it from that point. I wouldn't trade what we have now in a million years to go back to Eros. So
yeah, I think too that what am I trying to say?
I just dropped the mic. I don't think there's much you can say.
Well, that was pretty good. That was pretty good. But for me, I think it's more about there's something big here in the pragma part for me about accepting you for who you are and how you are, and changing the way, like instead of trying to change you to always pick up your socks, I realize, oh, he's never picked up his socks. I mean, he rarely picks up his socks. And I can either let that bother me, but I mean, we've been together for almost 24 years, and he doesn't like picking up his socks. And why do I care? Why? There's something very comforting that I have, like, okay, I know this about him. He might change, but probably not. And I'm tired of trying to change him because I know I can't ever change anybody but myself. So, oh, what am I going to change about myself? I'm going to not let that fucking bug me anymore. I'm going to let his socks lay on the floor. And if I decide that it's messy and I want to pick them up, I will pick them up, but I will only pick them up if I feel good about it. And I feel happy about that. And for me, I don't know, this is something, it's not really new, but I mean, it's probably within the last 5 years or 3 years where I've been able to really do this. And I think because it just brings myself peace, and I think it makes you feel better too, as I'm not nagging you anymore. I don't, and again, we're talking like a very small sliver of the pie that we're using as an example, but it's something about accepting your partner for all their imperfections and loving the shit out of them anyway.
And that's
boom. Did I just drop the mic?
Yeah, I wasn't. Did you? I wasn't even listening.
Honey.
Totally kidding. That's beautiful. Let's pause for a minute. I'm gonna look
Oh,
into your eyes lovingly.
oh. Your eyes are so cool.
That is the pragmatic approach to it, though. It is, I guess, realizing that I fell in love with the person as who they were, and then sometimes we were blinded by Eros, right? So when that wears off, then we're like, okay, well, this person is a little rough around the edges. I need to change them.
Yeah, this annoys me. That annoys me. I don't like the way they do this. I don't like the way, whatever.
And that's the migration phase where you're trying to like figure out, and this is where a lot of couples just bail,
Yeah, and I mean, I have to be honest. I don't think all couples should stay together. I think some couples shouldn't stay together. I think
no, we've always
sometimes we can't make it through the migration, and that's okay.
15 to 20%, I think. I'd like to think it's closer to 15, but let's just say it's 20. The divorce rate's over 50 now, but we do think that there's 20% of those over 50 that could be saved,
Yeah, I think if they just knew a little more about,
understood.
Unfortunately, it's a lot of things that you have to know about a little. You have to know a little bit about a lot of things to make that jump. I think that's how I feel about it. That's kind of what the book does too. It tells you a little bit about a lot of things. It tells you a little more than a little bit. I think we get into depth on some of this stuff. So, all right, let's talk about the stages of love.
I think we should make this a 2-part podcast.
You do?
Yeah. I think we need to give our listeners a little bit of a break. Sometimes we just talk. This has been 15 minutes.
It has?
I think so.
Well, it seems like it's been a long
Unless
time.
I'm hungry.
I'm hungry too.
Let's make this a 2-part podcast. We're going to tell you about the stages of love in our next podcast.
Coming up the week after that. And then, I wanted to do
we can still tell them about the other thing. We don't have to do an entire podcast about it.
Maybe. We'll have to talk about that.
Maybe we could put off the stages of love. I mean, it doesn't have to be.
No, we have to do it.
They don't go. No, I'm saying we could split the two is what I'm saying. It doesn't have to go back to back, right?
No, it has to go back to back.
God.
Actually, I wanted the stages of love first, but we got too excited about the different kinds of love.
Okay, this is part 2.
Oh yeah, we could do this as part 2. All right.
We don't even
so
know
you
what
might
we're
have
doing.
You might have already heard about the stages of love when you listen to this.
Nah. I feel like doing things organically the way they're supposed to come out, the way they came out of our heads. Our listeners are just going to have to pick up the pieces and figure it out.
They're smart. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Lots of love to you all.
Sorry, we're hungry.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.